Hey, Benny, welcome back. You did it once again. Man, that intro for Gabe Morales today, what a great intro. And the song, Te aventaste, Benny. Welcome back, brother. ¿Cómo
Thank
te
you.
fue allá
Thank
en
you.
México? How did it
It
go?
was it was good. That's a very old oldie right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Old oldie.
Old
old
oldie.
oldie. Oh, you know what, man? I love it when you put oldies like that on the intros. It just makes it, I mean, it takes us back in time. Que no, Chalo?
Yeah, I
I
don't
mean,
know, bro.
I mean, does it take
I
you
was
back in
young.
time?
I was really young, bro. I don't know, bro.
Charlo wasn't
Yeah,
even born yet.
I wasn't even born. No, I was born. I was born, bro. I was
Yeah.
born in '66. So
Yeah. Hey guys,
Yeah.
prayers for Sean. He notified all three of us that he couldn't make it. He's not feeling well. Prayers for him. Benny, we could see that you got a tan. You got some. You look a little red, little brown. You look great, brother. Did you have a good time in Mexico?
Yeah, I cooked, dude. I cooked.
Did you?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was a lobster, man.
Yeah. Good.
hey,
Hey guys,
what'd you do for the pain, Benny? What'd you rub
You
on for the
know,
pain?
there was a lady from Africa, one of the waitresses on the ship, and one of the workers there, and she said that in her country they're very poor and they don't have anything for suntan or anything. So she recommended the pudding. I'm sorry, yogurt, 100% yogurt, just plain yogurt. He said, put the yogurt, and the yogurt's going to work right away. It's going to take the itching and the redness. It's going to start taking it away. Leave it on for about 10 minutes and then shower. So I did that for the first 2 days, and actually it did work.
Wow,
oh,
yogurt
that's
hey,
good.
so inexpensive. Works better than some of the commercial stuff, huh?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, just
Wow.
yogurt. Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
So
well, good, Benny. Good. And what kind was it? Chocolate,
just
strawberry,
Greek,
vanilla?
Greek,
no, she
Greek
she
yogurt.
actually got she actually got it for me from the kitchen. Just regular white yogurt. It's just got to be
Plain.
plain yogurt. And she
Ah,
said, in
good.
my country we're very poor. We don't have money, so all the old ladies, she calls the grandmas. The grandmas
Oh,
have all kinds of homemade recipes for all kinds of different things,
yeah.
and that's what they
Pues,
use.
Hey, so
pues
what
qué
cruise line were
bueno,
you on,
Benny.
Benny?
Celebrity,
Okay, you recommend it?
no.
Okay,
Yeah,
good. Thumbs
yeah.
down.
Hey guys, I'm really excited about today. I'm a huge fan of Gabe Morales. I watch all of his episodes. Cops, politicians, and gangsters. Man, what an honor! And I know Benny, after you read his bio and you saw everything that he's done, that how you sent me that email saying wow. And you know what? I think that our listeners today are going to literally be wowed because the guy is once again, man, an outstanding individual. But before we get started, Chalo, do you have any shout outs?
Hey, just shout out to everybody who's out here just surviving today's economy, and even though people say the economy is good, I don't see it good. When you have to go out there and spend a lot of money to feed a family of four, you can't even afford to go out there and eat no more. Even the it's expensive to eat healthy, and I tell people that's why I think we are where we are in crisis with diabetes and everything, because it's expensive to eat healthy. So I mean, I know I'm way off the topic there, but just something that I saw earlier today, where people are saying, if we were trying to stay healthy, it costs 2, 3 times more than going to McDonald's or Jack in the Box to get some junk food. So
Yeah.
hats off for the people that are making ends meet, man.
And before we get to you, Benny, the prison guard, looking forward to this. Bienvenido, Hector, Lupe, Salud, Raza, Cholo Trucker. Welcome again, my brother. Seamus Donahue's telling you, Benny got a new nickname in Mexico. They're going to call you the solar panel. The solar panel. Lupe,
The solar
those
panel.
home remedies are the best. A huevo, Lupe. With that said, Benny, do you have any shout outs?
No, I don't.
No? Okay, guys, you know what? I want to do something a little bit different. A very good friend of mine. We talked about him last week when we had Felix Aguirre, which was an outstanding show. But Billy Cahill was born 5/23, 1962, passed away on 10/24, 2023. Billy Cahill and I, we worked Central Patrol. We were never on the same squad, but we worked around each other. And I think us being patrol officers, police officers, we understand when a police officer passes. I did get a chance to partner up with him when I was assigned to the gang unit. Billy Cahill, my nickname in the gang unit was Yard Dog. And you know what? They should have given it to Billy because Billy was one of those investigators, Benny, that when he was just like you, when he got a hold of you, he wouldn't let you go until he actually did the whole case and sent you to prison or exonerated you. And Billy Cahill passed away He has funeral services for those that are in San Diego that are law enforcement or not law enforcement. It's going to be at Shadow Mountain Church, 2100 Greenfield Drive. It's on the screen on Saturday, November 11th, and it's going to be a beautiful send-off to my brother. With that said,
Oh, hey, just a real quick.
Yeah,
Hey,
go
I'm,
ahead.
I'm sorry, David. Hey,
Yeah.
you know what? Shout out to all the veterans, and it'll be Veterans Day. I just saw the date. I forgot. November 11th, Veterans Day. Shout out
Yes.
to all the veterans, and actually, the Marine Corps' birthday too is coming up. It is the 10th, right? November 10th. If I'm not,
I believe
I
so.
think it's
Yeah.
November 10th. So,
But
happy
guys, what
birthday.
I want to do a quick, just a couple of seconds, moment of silence for Billy. This guy was another true legend with San Diego PD. Then he went to the DA's office. Just a quick moment of silence for Billy. We usually say, may he rest in peace, but you know what? Billy is resting in peace without a doubt. May he rest and be another of God's angels in heaven. With that said, Billy, we love you. God bless you. We will see you again very soon. With that said, Benny, it's all yours, my brother.
We all know that we got quite a few guys from San Quentin, the prison guards that work up there. They watch our show, and the last couple of days, something's echoing.
Yeah, Gabe, I think you have your either television or something else on that's reverting.
Oh,
Okay, go ahead, Benny.
The last couple of days, I've been getting quite a few text messages on the guys that work San Quentin. Then they're pretty upset. There's a lot of crap going on over there. I don't have any experience working in a prison setting, so I can't really tell them, what to do. And I always tell them, I got 5 messages from 5 different guards, and I told them, go watch Hector Bravo's show. He talks about that stuff all the time. Hopefully, he'll give you a chance to vent. There's a lot of stuff going on over there with CDC, so there's a lot of unhappy guys. So just a little info on that. So let's go back. So our guest tonight is Gabe Morales. He's the host of Gangsters, Cops, and Politicians podcast. A great show to watch. Gabe's he's got a lot of experience. He's got a very impressive resume. He just recently retired as a lieutenant at the Tacoma Immigration Processing Facility for ICE. Before that, Gabe was a Marine, served for 4 years in the 80s. He then worked in one of America's most violent state prisons, and we're talking about Folsom State Prison in California, for 6 years as a correctional officer. That's where he became very familiar with the game, with prison gangs and all the stuff that goes on behind the walls, especially in a high security prison like Folsom was or is. After that, Dave returned home. He went to Washington, where he continued to work. He became a correctional officer for the King County jail in Seattle for over 20 years. This guy just couldn't stop. He reminds me of me, There he was interviewing and documenting criminals, their backgrounds. He's interviewed thousands of inmates. Gabe's also a gang instructor for 20 years at the Washington State Academy. He teach and train police agencies from Washington and correctional staff. He's also authored, numerous books, and Dave was talking about that earlier. He's got a lot of books he's authored, so, very impressive again. Welcome to the show, Gabe.
all right. Thank you. Am I still echoing?
Can
you guys hear me?
Let's see if we're talking.
Yes, Gabe, we're still echoing.
Yes, Gabe,
Is there another radio on?
No,
Is your wife watching the show live?
I do have a fan. I have a fan on. Maybe let me try the fan. Shut that off real quick.
Oh, no. It's not going to be the fan.
It's not going to be the fan. It's.
I think he's got his computer still on.
No, I shut the computer. I shut the computer off, all the way off. I thought that was it. Yeah, there's nothing. No devices on at all.
Okay, we got a feedback.
We got a feedback.
Okay, the way we're gonna solve this, it's okay.
The
It's
way
no
we're gonna
problem.
solve
We're
this,
gonna
it's okay.
solve
It's no
this.
problem. We'll just solve
Okay,
this.
hold tight.
Okay, hold
Gabe,
tight.
I'm gonna mute your right now, Gabe. But when you're talking, I'm gonna unmute you, and it's not gonna cause any problems. And then when we ask you a question, I'll mute you. We'll ask you the question, and then I'll unmute you to answer. All right? All right. With that said, Benny asked you the question. Let's go ahead. Let's go on.
So, Gabe, tell us a little bit about your upbringing and your military service.
Okay, so I was born in Yakima, Washington. If you went to Yakima today, you might think you're in Stockton or Salinas. It's a farm working town, majority Mexican American and Mexican national citizens living there. And it's a very poor community. There's a lot of gang violence there. When I was very young, I moved to Seattle with my parents to the High Point projects of Seattle, which was predominantly poor blacks and poor whites. And so me and my brother were literally the only Mexicans there. So we got pretty good at either fighting or running away. You know, we learned real quick. So, so it was quite the experience growing up. But as I got older, Seattle became more diverse and more Latinos started moving in from Eastern Washington and other parts of the United States. So wasn't as bad as I got older, but yeah, it was quite the experience growing up there in Seattle. And of course, I had cousins down in Texas, Dallas Fort Worth area, and down in the Chino, California, and Bakersfield areas. So, so yeah, our family has been around in Washington State for over 100 years.
Wow.
Yeah, go ahead, Chalo.
Hey, you want to mute him so I don't reverb?
Yeah, go ahead, Charlie. Hey, you want to mute him so I don't reverb? Hey.
Okay,
Hey.
I just muted him.
Okay, Gabe. So, welcome aboard, man, and happy birthday coming up this Friday, November 10th, Semper Fi. I see you're a Marine. I'm not, but I very appreciate you guys. Anyways, share your experiences working for the California Department of Corrections while assigned to Folsom Prison. Unmute.
Okay, so basically, me do a real quick review of my Marine Corps career. And my 21st birthday was the first documented gang drive-by shooting involving Hispanic gangs. In fact, a couple of them were mafiosos, and a couple of them were 18th Street Sureños, supporters of these guys. And so they came after me on my 21st birthday party. They did get my brother's crew, almost killed my brother's best friend. And they came after me for a year. So I got tired of looking over my shoulder. I joined the Marine Corps. I say, hey, I'm gonna join the biggest gang. Okay. So probably best thing I did, hoorah. And that was in 1982. I actually joined on the Marine Corps birthday. And so they gave us steak and eggs, and I thought, I heard about the bad military food, and I was like, wait, this is not too bad. But of course, it was SOS for there on out. But so I did 4 in the Corps in California, and I worked 2 years at 29 Palms there in the high desert, and I did a year at Oceanside. And when I was in Oceanside, Camp Pendleton, I did a special assignment there at El Centro where the Blue Angels practice. So I got to do special guard duty there, and they were pulling tricks that they won't pull at air shows. They're just too dangerous, going up where you can't see them and then pulling up right before they hit the ground. I mean, it was amazing. And also during that time, while I was there, I went down to Calexico, Mexicali, and I found out that there was a very big Chinatown in Mexicali, because somebody said, ¿Cómo está? And with a Chinese accent, and I didn't know who was talking to me. I looked down the ground. It was an old Chinese guy there outside a restaurant. So that was kind of cultural shock there too. So, and I know we're going to talk about an individual there from the Brawley, El Centro area. So I brought that story up. So I know that Imperial Valley very well. As one of the hosts here worked there during his career. and also went down to the other way, I-5 corridor, where David and some of your partners worked. So I know that area too. I went to MCRD. I was a Hollywood Marine. Went down to Tijuana several times until they said, "Hey, Marines can't go there anymore." So I guess they got carried away a few times. So that was the end of that. But I know that area very, very well. Southern California, and also did a year in Okinawa. So when I got done with my Marine Corps tour, did 4 in the Corps, I didn't know what I was going to do. And my mother-in-law worked at Chino Prison. She was a corrections officer. And I didn't have a job. I wasn't sure what to do. And she said, "Hey, why don't you put in for CDC?" I was like, "Oh, no, I've seen too many prison movies, you know." She goes, "What, is the big bad Marine scared?" I said, "Yes." But she talked me into putting in the application, and lo and behold, Folsom Prison wanted to hire me. So I said yes, and the rest is history. I worked there for 6 years. So yeah, it was that at that time, Pelican Bay hadn't opened yet, or Corcoran. So basically, you went to San Quentin or Folsom. Those were the level 4 yards, the big level 4 yards, and it was pretty rough.
Hey, Gabe, what year did you work in
What
St.
year
Quentin?
did
I mean,
you work in St. Quentin?
here we go again. What year did you work at Folsom? And what year to what year did you work at Folsom?
So I worked, I worked at Folsom Prison. So my orientation had just opened up the new Folsom. So I actually helped open up new Folsom. In fact, my very first escort was a guy you guys already covered, I think, or maybe it was another show, but Blue Norris, General of the Aryan Brotherhood, and Ox Rufo, his cellie, were my very, very first 2 guys I escorted. And so we could talk about a little story about that here later if you guys have time. But that was pretty intimidating. And then I left there in '93 to go back to Washington State to the King County Jail as a corrections officer. But yeah, my introduction to prison gangs was at that time in '87. Before that time, I knew about street gangs. We had street gangs in Seattle, in Yakima. My brother was in the crew. My uncles ran around. It was more back then. It was more neighborhood cliques. And my grandfather did time at Walla Walla with the Washington State Penitentiary for manslaughter. So he ran with a group called Los Tejanos. And I tell people they really were the predecessors of the Texas Syndicate. Everybody who belonged to his group was from Texas. And as I said, our family's been there for 100 years. We came from Texas, and a lot of other families came with us. Some of them became involved in crime, and some of them became incarcerated. And that was basically the crew that my grandfather ran with at the Washington State Penitentiary. So a lot of people don't know that. And also there was a guy housed there later that I encountered in person. I visited at the Washington State Penitentiary in the late '70s, and then interviewed him after I returned to the King County Jail. And his name was Jose Cruz Lucero, better known as Jimmy Joe or Noodles. If you ever seen the famous shot of the MM members all lined up, he's standing right next to Robot Salas, Joe Morgan, and all the big homies. They're all right there in that picture. There's at least 12 of them, if not more. And so yeah, he was a made carnal. And when people tell me that, there's no Mexican mafia in Washington State, there's no one West Familia, I'm like, I beg to differ. I actually met some of them. I had to ask permission from my NF captain to even date his sister. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to prove, unless you were there, but I was there. So you can look up their criminal records. You'll see that they've been arrested in Washington State. So.
Wow.
Yeah. Hey, Gabe, before we get to Benny's, I think you answered Chalo's next question about prison gangs. Before we get to Benny's, there's a question from Albert Dominguez. Was Art Rufo from Baldwin Park? and only you know who this guy Art Rufo is.
Yes, I believe he was. He was part of a incident where they stomped a guy to death at the Orange County Jail. But yeah, he was from Southern California. Blue was from Northern California. But it's kind of interesting. They had kind of two factions. Blinky, I believe, was from Long Beach or Southern California. So Blinky and Blue beefed. It was a big power struggle everybody talked about at the time. But Blue's Sully, Art Rufo, known as Ox, was loyal to him. I mean, he would die for him, and he's basically his bodyguard. So, yeah, good question.
Benny, it's all yours.
Hey, Gabe, you want to mute it?
I just muted him.
Okay. Hey, Gabe. So I hear you got some experience dealing, or you did some research on a very notorious and one of the most popular MM members for a while back in the late 70s, 80s, Richie Pinuelas, who was originally, he was a Broleño from the Broleño gang in Brawley, and then he became an MM member. You know, we had him in our jail at Imperial County when I was working there, and he took a liking to me, so we got along with him pretty good, you know. And there was a late afternoon. I was doing a security check in the tank. We used to call them tanks. And there was probably maybe 40 inmates in that tank. It was a high-powered tank. And Richie was in that tank. So he was like the tank captain. He ran the whole thing there. So I'm doing my security check, and I go all the way to walking back. I look to my right, and I've got my flashlight, and I flash the light at the bars. And the bars, I mean, that's the old El Centro jail, the one behind the old courthouse. Everything was bars. It was just like San Quentin. Everything's bars, and you know, like Alcatraz. So anyway, I hit the bars, and I noticed there was a big section of the bars missing. And I said, "Oh shit!" You know. So I noticed that nobody was talking to me anymore, and everybody that was in the rear of the tank is now all the way up in the front. So I had a choice: either I go out through the bars, or I go out the main door. So me being dumb and young, I just decided to walk through the main door. So I cut across all the inmates there, and nobody said a thing to me. I popped the gate open, locked the door, and pushed the panic button. And you know, within minutes we had, the valley's not very big, so we don't have a lot of law enforcement. But we had border patrol, CHP, Central PD, and sheriff's guys, blocking the streets and everything, because they had direct access to the street. All they had was a catwalk and a window leading into the street. But anyway, later on, the investigators talked to Richie, and they told him, "Hey, so why didn't you guys take out the deputy? I mean, he was the only thing stopping you guys." And he actually said he had a liking to me. He said I was cool and I got along with everybody. So he just told the guys, "Look, man, they got us. Just leave it alone. Let him get out, and we'll deal with it." So that was my history behind with Richie. And like I said, I used to talk to him quite a bit in the jail, and he gave me a lot of schooling as far as how to handle high power inmates and that kind of stuff. So what's your story with him?
Go ahead, Gabe.
Yes, I'm very aware of Richie. And like I said, when I was in the Marine Corps, I used to go down through that area, Brawley and El Centro and Calexico and all done through there. So, yes, he was very well known there. There was not a lot of meros out of Imperial, but he was one of them. And when I was doing my research on him, I ran across him on a list of a group called Familia Cinco. Now, there's a lot of people who believe that Familia Cinco were the predecessors to the Nuestra Familia. That is not true. I actually know the guy who started him. His name was David Corona, and he was from Maravilla. A lot of your listeners are aware of the Shoe War, and during the Shoe War, the Maravillas were tired of the MA attacking their people. And so the Maravillas actually supported Texas Syndicate and this new group called Nuestra Familia Mexicana to resist against the MA. Well, later on, there were some people who didn't like the NF either. They didn't like the NF and they didn't like the MA. So there was a new group that formed, and David Corona was the leader of that group. Like I said, he was from Maravilla, and they were called Familia Cinco. And I'll be doing an episode pretty soon showing how he is writing a letter in January of 1974 to his followers, complaining about how so many of them are jumping ship back to the NF and back to the MA. So that's kind of interesting. So how can they be the predecessors of the NF if the NF started in the mid-60s and this group is still around in the mid-70s? It just doesn't make, historical sense to me. And so hopefully I can explain that to people. But one of the guys that were on the Familia Cinco list was Richie Primuelas from Brole. So what I believe happened is, because then he was back with the MA. So I believe he was one of those individuals that David Corona was talking about, that they either hoped would join Familia Cinco, or maybe they counted him in as being a supporter. Maybe he had some issues with some of the other MA and put him down on the roster as, hey, we'll count him as an ally. Whether he actually joined or not, I can't really say, because I only saw that one time that his name on the list. So there was only one Richard Pumuela from Brole. Like you said, it's a pretty small area. I'm pretty sure it was him. So how that happened or why that happened, I'm not exactly sure, but he was on a Familia Cinco list. I believe then he was able to either return to the MA with no penalty, or that they were mistaken and he actually wasn't supporting them as much as they maybe thought he was. So yeah, that's my story on him. He was at Folsom Prison, but in 1986, as I said, I started in 87, and I checked before the show, and he was transferred to Tehachapi. I mentioned that there was no Pelican Bay or no Corcoran yet, and so it was San Quentin or Folsom pretty much had the bad guys. Well, Tehachapi had just opened a shoe, I believe, in 85, and I think that's where Richie went. So I did not handle him personally like I did with Blue Norris or Joe Morgan, some of these other guys, but I was very aware of him. I would keep tabs on these guys. I would say that not all officers, but many officers just did their, what they call it, did their 8 and hit the gate, and didn't really pay attention too much about who was on the yard. I used to pull their cards. They take their shirts off. I'd see their tattoos, and hey, this guy's from Brole, or this guy's from Pozole, or whatever barrio he's from, or East Los, Maravilla, wherever. And I would say, hey, come here, let me talk to you for a minute. Where's your CDC card? And they were supposed to always have it on them. And if not, I sent them back to the unit because they couldn't be out in the yard without it. But I would keep track. I'd write their name. I had a little notepad in my pocket, and I put it in there, and I'd write down their name and number. And then I'd go back later a lot of times and check pull their C files, which has all the confidential information on these guys, a lot of times prison gang information. And I found a lot of interesting stuff. So although I never was on the gang unit at Folsom, I was an officer that cared enough to pay attention. And a lot of the gang officers would talk to me. Some of them, to be honest, felt like I was butting into their business. I don't think they liked that, me doing that. But I paid attention, and it paid off more than once. I can say that for sure.
Hey, Gabe, we have a question from Seamus Donahue. Right now, after this, Chalo's going to be asking you a question. The question is, a lot of guys who claim to have been somebody in CDCR have YouTube channels. Who do you find to be the most credible? And that's the ones that you know of, because there's a lot that are very credible and that they're on you might not know of. But the ones that you know of, who do you find most credible?
Well, Mundo was on. I mean, he definitely was in the MA, no questions about it. Had committed several murders per his, not just his own say-so, but per criminal record that's documented, well documented. So as far as the MA, he is credible. Boxer Mendoza that does the channel, he was an NF captain, and he is very knowledgeable too, especially on the time period he was in. And so the people, there's a lot of YouTube channels out there, the prison genre, they call it. And I guess you could consider me to be part of that, although I try not to get boxed in. I do a lot of other true crime stuff and, exposés on crooked cops. I mean, I try not to just do prison stuff. So I don't fall in that trap. But there's a lot of them out there that pretty much do that. And the ones I think, to be honest, that are good are good when they talk about the time period they were in and what they did. When they start getting off into other areas, I'll give you an example. He's deceased, and no disrespect to him, but his name is Robert Grattan. He wrote a book under the pen name of Nina Fuentes, which was a very weak disguise of nuestra familia. Nancy Flores, Nina Fuentes, it's all NF. And his book is pretty good too when he talks about the gun CD and when he was involved in that, and the stuff he did in his town of Modesto. But when he gets off into stuff that happened before he was even born, like saying that Familia Cinco was the predecessor of the Nuestra Familia, I don't know who fed him that, but I know I've heard it from multiple people. So he probably just repeating what he heard. So I try to, on my channel, not just take one source. I try to do the same thing that most people do in police work and corrections, and that is have at least 3 independent sources before I go out on a limb and say, yeah, this is what I believe to be true. And even then, a lot of times I put it, hey, this is what CDC says, that this guy's a validated MA member, or the BOP says this guy is validated. No, maybe they're not. Maybe they never were accepted. And the way the MA works, and a lot of these prison gangs work, is a lot of times they put up a guy for membership, and he's on probation. If he doesn't pass that probation, then they pull his card. He's not considered to be made. He's not accepted, not legit. So anyways, that's, I know that's kind of a long answer to your question, but yeah, there's some good ones out there. There's some not so good ones out there. The ones that I watch are the ones, or episodes I watch anyways, when they're talking about stuff they did and not second, third-hand information.
Chalo, we're going to get back to you. Otis, I saw your question. We're going to get to your question right now in a little bit, Otis. I'm not going to ignore it. You're going to put it up. With that said, we have one more question from the prison guard, and then we'll hear from Chalo. In your opinion, did housing validated prison gang members in the SHU for 20 plus years beneficial or detrimental to CDC, California Department of Corrections, as a whole?
Well, good question, Hector. Good to see you. I enjoy your show. I will mention that the Prison Guard is another legit show, although it's not by a former prison gang member. It's by a former prison employee of CDC. I think you agree with me. I don't know about that R they put on their rehabilitation. I'm not sure how good we're at that. We're pretty good at locking them up and keeping them locked up. We should do a better job of the rehab side, but that's true all over the United States, not just with CDC. And that's something that I believe in rehabilitation, but we also need to not be naive. And I think there's a lot of game playing going on right now. When the prison gangs got locked down and the security housing units were built because CDC was out of control, they were killing, I want to say between, and don't quote me on this, but I want to say between 1970 and 1975, there's like 167 murders in CDC. And the majority of those were prison gangs. You could look it up. I can't remember the exact number, but it was very high. And you got to remember, they only had like 12, main, besides camps, 12 prisons there in California. Then they had a lot of guys locked down the SHU because of this bloodshed. And I think it did impact the prison gangs, very much so. The problem was, I think, is that sometimes they had the lock them down, throw away the key approach. And there are some guys who I believe wanted to leave that life or did leave that life. And they weren't allowed to leave the SHU unless they debriefed. And I know a lot of guys I know one guy who's a former Aryan Brotherhood member and had stabbed people, killed for the AB. And they said, Morales, they want me to debrief. I won't do it. It's against my religion, it's against my principles. Even though these guys tried to kill him, he was all stabbed up. He would not, quote, snitch on him. He said, I can't do it. It's just, I couldn't live with myself. And so I believe there were a lot of guys who either wanted to leave or no longer active, but they were told that the only way to get out of the SHU is to debrief, die of natural causes, or get killed. And I don't think that was a very good way to do it, because it puts people in a bad spot. But it did force a lot to debrief. That's true. But how good is that information then when they're forced to basically roll? Are they making up some stuff? I believe some of them did make up some stuff. We're asking the guy over who's also debriefing, hey, what'd you tell him? Okay, this is what I told him, get our stories in line. And so I guess, Hector, and you know this as good as me, to put it short, yes, the shoes did help. Then they let them all out. And about 2015, 2016, what happened? The murder rate has gone through the roof again. It's crazy. And I know you agree with me. I've talked to a lot of officers and they said, I quit. It's out of control. It is told the officers don't run anymore. So that's not a good thing either, to have officers who don't feel they're empowered to run their units, to have inmates now dictating, prison gang members dictating the program instead of CDC staff.
Okay, Chalo, it's all yours.
And we all know it's all damn political for people that live in a nice gated community with a security guard and all that stuff. Anyways, share how you develop expertise working in prison and street gangs with us. How you got that? And maybe you can also add on, tell us about your prison and street gang mentors, since it's kind of ties in.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I know Hector Bravo can relate to this. I talked to these guys. There's a lot of staff, like I said, they just do their 8 and hit the gate. They really didn't interact with the convicts very much, and of course, they didn't get a lot of information either. They didn't want to talk to them. But I did. I talked to them, and I talked to them like a human being. I told them, hey, you give me respect, and I'm going to give you respect. You don't give me respect, and we're going to have problems. It's basically like that. And they respected that, come from that, that type of attitude. So, I heard people tell me, hey, those inmate guys, they don't talk to nobody. Well, I talked to Joe Morgan. He didn't say, hey, this is what's going on. This guy here is going to get hit tomorrow. This here is going to happen. But I remember asking him about the movie American Me, who, of course, William Forsythe played JD, which was, everybody knew was basically Joe Morgan's character, and Edward James almost played Cheyenne. And I said, hey, hey, Joe, I heard a movie coming out on you. And he said, yeah. I said, well, you got paid pretty good, didn't you? He said, that's okay. It'll be taken care of. Well, not too long. I left it alone then because he didn't seem like he was in a pretty good mood to talk that day. But later on, there was 3 advisors at least, and some people say more, that were killed concerning that movie. Now, there's some people who say that had nothing to do with it. So, once again, you get different opinions. Sometimes it's hard to prove things, but it is a fact that a lot of people involved with that movie were killed or extorted. Allegedly, almost was extorted. So, I talked to Joe Morgan. I just treat him like a human being. I treated the vast majority of these guys the way they treated me, and so I had no problems really dealing with them. And I would pick up things. You don't have to say things. A lot of people don't know this, but verbiage is only about 15% of communications. The majority of communications is the way you say it, your tone, and your body language. So, if they don't say nothing, or they kind of tense up, that tells you something. If they get mad or they're saying it very low key, that can also tell you something about the answer they're giving you. So I'm pretty good, I think, at communications. My wife might not agree with that, but that's a different topic. But I'm pretty good. I've just come out with a book called Interviewing, Interrogations, and Intelligence, and oh no, I forgot the other eye. It's called The 4 Eyes. Intelligence sharing, yes, and interviewing, interrogation, intelligence, I drew a blank on the other eye. But it's been a long day. But yeah, you can check that out. I wrote that with Corey Cooper. He's a police officer. I've never been a police officer, but he wrote kind of the police side, and I wrote the correction side on how to talk to these guys. And they'll tell you a lot if you just ask. But you got to interact with them first, and then don't just take it as a yes or no. Follow up on that question. That's what I would do. You know, where are you from? 18th Street. I said, well, 18th Street's a big gang, homeboy. You know, West Side, North Side, South Side, East Side. Yeah, I'm from West Side. Okay, from West Side's a big area. A lot of gang members in 18th Street on the West Side. You know, and they'd be like, yeah. So what clique out? You know, then maybe they'll break it down. Little Columbia, little Cycles. You know, and so that's basically the way I go at it. And then I can. If they don't want to tell me, I can still pull their C file, check their records and stuff. But it's a lot easier if you can get it out of them to verify, which you probably already know some of the information. It's on their tattoos, it's on their cups they carry around, their tumblers, it's when you do your cell searches, you see it on their artwork. There's so many indicators that could tell you stuff. If you look, you read their letters. I would screen the letters very carefully. And look for code, very, very simple codes. A lot of times they don't even have to disguise it because they know a lot of officers don't care. They going through the mail. I would do it on overtime, and I could tell that nobody else was really screening it very much before because they pretty blatant about what they plan on doing. They didn't even try to hide it, so they probably didn't expect I was going to show up on duty that day and actually be an officer who would scrutinize their mail that day.
Hey, tell us about the second part of the question that Chalo asked. Tell us about your mentor. I saw you did a great episode on Moko. Tell us about who Moko was for those that do not know. I know that he's one of your main mentors. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and put him on the screen. That's you and him. It's all yours. Tell us about Moko. Who was he? And tell us everything about him.
Well, Moko has a special place in my heart. Robert Morrell, aka Moko, was the first founder of the Prison Gang Task Force in California. And so he was basically one of the guys who blew the lid off the MA, the NF, and the BGF, and the Aryan Brotherhood in the state of California. And they had a Prison Gang Task Force that met all over the state like they still do today. They had representatives from all major agencies. At first, it was majority LA sheriffs and LA PD, and California Department of Corrections, and then expanded throughout the state. And they would share intelligence not only at these monthly meetings, but on a daily basis. So I learned a lot from Moko because he was the gatekeeper for all the files. And back then, all the files were on paper. They were on each individual. I have Joe Morgan's file. It's a pretty thick file. It was everything about him, from his upbringing, to going to Fort Maravilla, to his first incarceration at San Quentin, and who he hung with, and when he joined the MA, and all these kind of things, and pictures of his driver's license, et cetera, et cetera. And so I learned so much from this man, and about the Mexican Mafia, which was his specialty, but he followed all the gangs. And so that's somebody who definitely, was very high up on my list of mentors. Paco Marcel from Arizona. He worked in Arizona, New Mexico. He was on the California Gang Task Force. He's another individual. Chuck Scoble was the founder of the Arizona Gang Investigators Association, and also I believe, worldwide president of the Outlaw Bikers Association. And he also taught me a lot about gangs and bikers, and he also was a hostage negotiator. So I attended a very interesting class on that. Hoping that I never took hostage. Unfortunately, these poor people in Gaza are today, and not to talk too much on politics. It's just a tragedy all the way around for everybody there. But back on topic. Some of my other mentors, you mentioned Felix Aguirre. I learned a lot about San Diego gangs from him. Learned a lot about the drug cartels down there on the border from Steve Duncan, who I also believe you had as a guest on your show. Pretty much all the guests you've had on your shows, Nelson Arriaga, president of the California Gang Investigators Association, Wes McBride, who is the president and founder of that organization, everybody with the International Latino Gang Investigators Association, which I was the founder of, and still have a lot of good friends there with that group. Pretty much all the gang investigators associations I've worked with, East Coast Gang Investigators, Edwin Santana over there out of New Jersey. He helped me a lot with my East Coast Gangs book. Joe Sparks, co-author on my Chicago Gangs book, Chicago PD Gang Unit for decades. Steve Lucero, there out of Colorado DOC, investigative lieutenant, knew everything about Colorado gangs. And also because the ADX is there, taught me a lot about what was going on with Champ, and a lot of those guys were there housed at the ADX and other gangs. You name it. Moco also worked out of Texas. A lot of people don't know that. He investigated all the major guys out of the Texas Syndicate and Mexicaneme, is how they say it, the Texas Mexican Mafia. You name it. All the gang investigator associations I network with still today. And there's some great people with all those organizations, and I strongly support them and anybody out there trying to fight the good fight.
We have a next question from Shalo, but before we get to his question, we have another question from Shane. We have another question from Seamus Donahue. Okay, now I got it. Okay, any predictions on how the Norway project experiment will work out? That's the project that the governor in California, Gavin Newsom, is basically adopting, implementing, and he wants to start it off in San Quentin. What's your predictions on that, Gabe?
Not good. We are not Norway. Norway has problems with like bikers. As far as I know, they have organized crime. They have bikers and organized crime. But as far as I know, their street gang problems are relatively low compared to other parts of the world and compared to the United States in particular. I have seen some of the things they've done there, and I think if you do that with some individuals, they will respond. And I think some of the shoe step down programs were pretty good at not just kicking this guy out of Pelican Bay and expecting him to survive out there and on parole out there in the real world, or even out on another yard when they've had their whole life controlled for all these years. You need a transition, and some guys I think are ready for that, especially if they're older and mature. And so I think that rehabilitation, again, can work with some people. I didn't really want to get into politics here, but, Newsom, it seems like, wants to turn San Quentin into Shangri-La, and they'll have them sing Kumbaya. So if he has level 1 and level 2 inmates, that might work. But I'm pretty sure the MA and the AB, the majority of the shot callers and stuff, are not going to allow that. The fellow prisoners, their cellmates in particular, to sing around in a circle and sing Kumbaya and play, basketball games with staff and baseball games with staff and that kind of stuff. That's good public relations stuff. It might work with some, but there's some people who, unfortunately, they need that 23-hour lockdown. They can't control themselves. I've had guys actually tell me, what, if you cut me loose, Morales, if you guys cut me loose, I'm going to kill again. They know this. They're telling us this. And if we don't listen, then shame on us. So, how many chances do you get? That's why I see I don't have so much a problem with letting some of the older guys, have some freedoms and some more programs. The problem I have right now is with the youngsters. The approach with the youngsters, they pretty much can do whatever they want. And it's not just in California. It's in Washington State. It's in Oregon. It's in many places. And they don't do anything to them. And what message does it say? That crime doesn't pay? No, it says a message that crime does pay. and nothing's going to happen to you. So why should you change? It's the wrong message. So yeah, I think the system needed some changes, some reforms. But I tell people all the time, I think COVID reformed the system more than anything else. Half the jails and prisons were empty during COVID. They found all these guys, these old 80-year-old guys, that were doing life and never supposed to get out and haven't had a CDC 115 in 20 years. And all of a sudden they're like, yeah, let's cut this guy loose. So it was amazing how they found all these people to cut loose. But you can't cut everybody loose. And also, like I said, you can't deal with these youngsters, with such a easy street approach. I think it's going to backfire. We're going to see a lot of criminals coming in the system again. When people get fed up with it's not just property crimes anymore, these guys now are starting to commit violent crimes because we didn't deal with it well when they were doing low-level crimes.
Okay, Chalo, it's all yours. And right now, when Chalo asks this question, as you're talking, I'm going to actually be pinning up all your books. I think I got 12 of them. So as we're pinning up, if you don't mind talking about them, Chalo, it's all yours.
Hey, Benny, I thought you were going to take them. Oh, you got it, Benny?
Hey, you go ahead, Charlotte. But let me bring something up real quick. When we first started our episode, we talked about those San Quentin guards that were texting me and telling me about what's going on in San Quentin, and they're all upset. And I recommended them. They're talking about the Norway project, and I told them go to Hector Bravo's podcast and listen to it. On that prison guard. Now we can tell them to go ahead and go to Gabe's webpage too, and Gabe's podcast and listen to it. Hopefully you'll talk more about it because they don't like it. They're not happy up there. They know it's ridiculous. Go ahead, Chalo.
Go ahead, Chalo.
Oh, there you go. Hey, so real quick, tell us about or share with us the names of your books and how our audience can purchase copies of your books.
Okay, well, the very first one I wrote was called Barrio Warfare, Violence in the Latino Community. I also wrote the Mexican Mafia one you see there in Aryan Brotherhood. I've written books on all the prison gangs, the major California prison gangs, as well as prison gangs across other parts of the United States. That East Coast Books is a relatively recent one that Edwin Santana from New Jersey helped with. Joe Sparks helped me co-write the Chicago ones, and he has a wealth of information. I mentioned that my family is out of Texas and Washington State and California. Well, I also have some family I forgot to mention in Chicago. So I've been there many times. That crime there is out of control. They're going through some of the same things we are on the West Coast. I wrote the book on the Nuestra Familia, as you see there. I've been doing MA, A through Z, as far as a roll call. I'll be doing NF, A through Z next. The Understanding Street Gangs and Violence in America is printed by Cognella. That's a college textbook. It's kind of pricey, but it's pretty good for college students for Gangs 101 if they've never been exposed to gangs. So that's another good book. The book there by myself and Steve Lucero talks about gangs throughout the Southwest United States. And I also recently wrote a poetry book, which some people kind of got shocked. They're like, hey, isn't that kind of like Clint Eastwood writing a children's book? But I do it. It relaxes me. It relaxes me. And I live here in Hawaii, and I've gone to some very special places, and it kind of brought out the poet in me. So yeah, I'm pretty proud of that one too. Indian, Black, and Brown Violence in America is something I wrote after I started hearing about the MA attacking blacks. Not just inside prisons, but ordering Serenians do so on the streets. And that's pretty upsetting. But guess what? It doesn't just happen in California. It happens all over America. America's changing. More and more Latinos are coming into America. And a lot of blacks feel that, hey, they're taking their jobs. And there's a lot of friction in these communities. So that's what that book is about. And saying that we have more in common than we do as far as differences. So I'm hoping that changes. The book with Andy Eways, we wrote on Sureños and The Mara Salvatrucha and 18th Street is a very good overview of Sureño gangs, predominantly out of California, if you're interested in that. One on the BGF that's shown there. I'll be doing BGF after I get done with NF and AB. Ending the drug, how we lost the drug war. Ending this present quagmire we find ourselves in, involving the drug cartels out of Mexico and other parts of the world, but predominantly Mexico, and the drug epidemic that's ongoing. It didn't end with crack. It's ongoing. Today, fentanyl is, well, for a while there was meth, and now here in Hawaii, we've just gotten fentanyl is now hitting in, and the murder rate has gone up. Before with meth, if it wasn't tied down, they'd steal it to support their meth habit. Now people are killing people, robbing them and killing them to get money for the fentanyl. So it's the violence has increased. And see, you got the book there on Southeast gangs and the Dixie area. Also wrote a book on Asian gangs, Pacific Islander gangs. I think that's the Kindle version cover there. But that's something that a lot of people haven't covered or not recently. So I got into that quite a bit. And Latino music, violent influences in Latino rap today. When I was listening to a lot of the Sureño and Norteño rappers and from other parts of the United States, I saw this music. They would take these oldies like you played on the beginning of the show, but then they're putting these violent lyrics over it, and people are dying over these songs. It happens in black rap music, and it happens in Latino rap music. And it's very unfortunate. That's the style of music that a lot of young people listen to today. And if they hear, hey, scrap killer or whatever, they're going to want to go out and shoot some Sureños after they listen to that. It's very unfortunate. I don't think the music alone makes them do that. It's them not being brought up right that makes them do that. But it is something definitely that disturbed me, and so that's why I wrote that book. And I like Latino music. I love Santana and Malo and El Chicano, all the old groups and everything. I just don't like the way that some of these guys are putting down this violence and hate over these very good beats.
Wow.
Hey, Gabe, tell us, all these pictures I got from Amazon, and what I like about your books, they're $12, $9, $13. I mean, they are cheap, and you know what? They're great books. I haven't bought any of the books yet, but this week I'm definitely going to order the one on the Mexican cartel lyrics. On that one, I'm going to order also the one on the BGF and also Asian Pacific Islanders. Tell us once again, tell our listeners about where they could buy them and why are they so cheap. Ready.
Well, yes, I enjoy writing. I enjoy sharing my knowledge with people if they're willing to listen. And I'm not out to make a lot of money on this. I price them so that people would be able to afford to buy them. As your host said, it's expensive now to buy groceries. People are trying to feed their families and stuff. They don't have a lot of money to buy books, but I put it where it's pretty low priced. I'm not making a ton of money off of them or off my YouTube videos. And contrary to public opinion, you're not. If you think about getting rich in this business, you're probably going about it all wrong, because that's not where it's at. It's about educating people and bringing the information to people. And you can get most of those on Amazon.com. If you Google Gabe Morales or Gabriel, some of them are under my full name, Gabriel Morales or Gabe Morales Gangs and Gang Books, and most of those will come up. Some of them, I think, even the Cognella book and the new Four Eyes book for investigators can be purchased online too, but they go through Cognella. And of course, the book there that I wrote with Andy Eways is through Police and Fire Publishing. So I've gone through a few different publishing companies, but the majority of them are printed via Amazon or can be still bought via Amazon.
David,
Hey,
come on, man. David.
Spencer. Mike Bristol. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. No, go.
Yeah, Mike Bristol, they're not cheap. I understand they are inexpensive. Laugh out loud. You're absolutely right. They're inexpensive. Chalo, go ahead. Go with the next question.
Hey, David, you want to buy the poem book, bro. You want to buy the poems. Come on, bro.
A huevo.
Hey, you know why you're afraid to read that? Because you're gonna start writing poetry out of Florida.
Exactly. Oh.
Órale. Hey, so Sean, Sean, I'm sorry because I saw it was Sean's question. And Gabe, tell us about your YouTube channel, por favor, real quick, like, because we're already over.
Give me a second. Okay, Gabe, you're on.
Okay, Gabe, you're on.
So during COVID, I was forced to learn how to use technology. I used to teach. Back when I first started teaching, we used a chalkboard. But I decided that, hey, during COVID, I need to, if I want to get this information out there, I need to do it via the internet because that's what everybody was doing, virtual learning. And so I learned and I got better at it. I think I'm getting better all the time. I'm a dinosaur like you guys. We had some problems even getting started here on this show. You hit one wrong button and it'll mess everything up. A lot of times I have to ask my 5-year-old grandson, how do I do something? It's kind of embarrassing, but they know more than us. They've had us. So I started the Gangsters, Cops, and Politicians to cover criminal justice issues. And I have a wide variety of videos on there for people if you want to look them up. I think I'm up to over 150 videos now.
Wow.
Hey,
the next question is yours, Gabe.
The next question is yours, Gabe.
Go ahead, Chalo.
Okay. What has been your biggest struggle?
What has been your biggest struggle?
And what obstacles have you crossed in law enforcement? Go ahead, Gabe.
Go ahead.
Okay, you're on, Gabe.
Yeah,
You're on, Gabe.
it's kind of sad to say, but I hope people don't take this wrong, but I've had very few problems communicating with convicts. It's very sad, I guess, because I always expected to have some problems sometimes with convicts. Criminals were the other side. We're supposed to be the enemy, according to a lot of them, the adversary, how you want to put it. But what hurt me most probably was people who should have been allies, meaning our fellow law enforcement, fellow corrections sometimes, who would try to hinder my work or downright, backstab me. I don't know how better to put it. Do things, undermine me. And that I did not expect. And that was really hurtful. And it didn't just happen once. It happened a few times, not all the time, because I believe most of the people that are in law enforcement are good people. But there are some that I question kind of, why are you in this? If it is your goal to try to make other people look bad? Because I've never looked at it that way. I've always tried to make other people look good. And, that's been my philosophy, and it's worked pretty much for the most part. Most people will repay that back tenfold. I have been burned a couple times, but it's actually pretty rare. And I hope I never become bitter. Tony Moreno was another big mentor to me. I remember one time I was telling him a story about how I got done dirty, and he said, Gabe, don't become bitter, become better. I was like, orale. That's good advice, man. Thank you, Tony.
With that said, Gabe, you know what time is our biggest enemy? Real quick, you've just completed the member alphabetical order episodes. Those of you that are watching our show, if you haven't seen it, please subscribe to Politicians, Cops, and Gangsters. This is probably one of the best listings that I have ever seen regarding the MA alphabetical episodes. They are outstanding. The last question that I have for you is, tell us about your future ventures. Future ventures. What are you writing a book? What's the next episode on gangs, politicians, and cops? It's all yours.
It's all yours.
Well, thank you. I'm very humbled by that. Thank you for those kind words, David. I'll be doing the NF A through Z and AB A through Z after that, and then BGF. After that, I'm not sure. That's probably going to take me into mid next year. These things do take a while because I do research them. I try to double check because, believe me, the viewers will point out any little mistake you make. So I try to make as few of those as possible. I still make them. I'm not perfect, but I enjoy doing the show, or I wouldn't do it, and enjoy educating people. And I also learn things. So, it's a two-way street. So thank you guys. I really enjoy watching your show also. And man, I'll watch many more. Thank you. Do an awesome job.
Thank you, brother. And you know what? I stopped. Yeah. I told Amos that we were going to, I didn't want to ignore his question. He's asking how many years did Gabe serve as a specialized correctional gang investigator? I understand you did 6 with the California Department of Corrections, but you also did 20 as a gang investigator right in Washington. Am I correct, or tell me about it?
Pretty close.
Oh,
You're pretty close. Yeah, 6 years at Folsom, almost exactly. Then 24 years total at the King County Jail, and 1 year as a correctional officer, 23 years with classification, which we had basically control of the security threat group investigations there, tracking that. And I was on all the local gang task force there in Washington State, attended all the meetings. And then I retired, I thought, but then I had to go back for another short period as a lieutenant at the ICE processing facility, as you mentioned there, in Tacoma as a lieutenant. So that was I think that's my last hurrah. As far as books, I'm not sure I'm going to write anymore. I keep on saying this will be the last time, but there's always seems like always another time that comes up. So I'll do it if it, the opportunity is right and the time is right. And as long as I enjoy doing it.
Hey, brother, thank you very much. With that said, Chalo, any last questions? And then Benny, any last questions for Gabe?
No, I'm good.
Benny?
Hey, Gabe, I got a question for you. Where did you get the name Gangsters, Cops, and Politicians? I mean, are we all blend in?
You're on, Gabe.
Well, a lot of people said, "Hey, is there much of a difference?" A lot of my friends have clowned me on that one. So, it's interesting because I've talked to a lot of gangsters and I've talked to a lot of cops. I've had some problems getting any politicians on there because I think unless they're running for office, maybe they don't want to go on the record, Anyways, like I said, I don't want to get into politics, but it's all politics, Everything that we do in life, it seems like, is politics these days. And I try not to get caught up in it, but it's a reality of life. Politics is just part of, being a human being, I guess.
Good name.
Hey, Gabe, once again, brother, thank you very much. Like I said, man, I'm one of your biggest fans. I watch your show. My wife and I, sometimes we watch it together. I definitely watch it. Thank you for what you're doing. We're very grateful. It was an honor and a privilege to have you on our show, and we look forward to have you once again. But next time, we're going to let everybody else. I had a lot of questions that I didn't get a chance to go through, so Benny's in charge of our questions. Next time, no questions. We're going to let our viewers ask you the questions. With that said, Gabe, aloha. Have a great time in Hawaii, my brother. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you.
Man, guys, what an interview, huh? It was very interesting, man. It was good. What did you guys think?
Liked it. We need to get him better Wi-Fi in Hawaii.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
With that said, Benny, tell us who our next guest is, and I actually put a slide on it. Tell us who next week's guest is.
Well, we're getting Devin Hawks back. Last time that we had Devin, we ran out of time. And he wanted to cover the Aryan Brotherhood. So we're going to cover Aryan Brotherhood, a lot of their members that Devin has a lot of experience with, dealing with. And if we have time, we're going to cover some NF. I know he wants to cover NF too. So we're going to see how it goes. We might have to bring him back a fourth time just to cover NF. Those that don't know who Devin is, he's a retired CDC correctional investigator. He was a SSU. David has debriefed hundreds of inmates, a lot of them prison gang members. So it's going to be interesting having him back. He always brings a lot of people. I mean, people love him. They like to hear him. The other thing I wanted to bring up was, dude, I just finished reading Brian Perry's book, The Hit List. Dude, what a book!
What a
What a
book, huh?
book!
I told you.
Wow. I highly recommend reading that book.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't put it down. I mean, it took me 3 days to read it, but I read it, and man, what a story! The stories in there, dude, unbelievable, unbelievable.
With that said, Chalo, last words.
Don't forget, man. This is a good book, guys.
That's
I
right.
like it. Good
And the
stories. Good.
music.
I mean, good advice. Great, man. This is written by Pete Bollinger, David Contreras, and Benny Cruz.
That's right. Yeah.
Our
Thank you, brother.
our very own guys, man.
Glad you enjoyed it.
I got it. I just, you know what? I just need you guys to autograph it for me, man. So we're gonna have to meet one of these days.
Definitely.
We'll fly to Florida, Benny, just to get my signatures on the book.
Aquí tienen su casa. Aquí tienen su casa.
Anyways, hey, you know what? Just uh, man, I had a brain fart right now. What was I gonna say? Jeez, I guess old
Last
age,
words.
old
Last
age and
words.
water.
Words of encouragement.
Last words, man.
Words of
Like I said, integrity means everything, guys. With everything that's happening out there, you guys, young career, mid career, late career, always show integrity, por favor, guys. It's never too late to start. If you're doing something wrong, wake up, man. It's time for you to get your shit together and live a good career and end a good career. If you guys are towards the end, in the middle, you guys don't have to want to long way to go. If you're beginning your career, when you have integrity, man, your word means more than anything. Better than gold.
Benny.
Yeah, just to those men and women that are out there serving our communities, just be prepared for the fight of your life. You know, it can happen in a flick of a second, as we all know. Uh, if you need to fight dirty, do so. Get tough and get mean. Train and know your job, and be proud of that badge. You know, don't tarnish that badge, man. You know, whatever you don't tarnish that badge, because it makes us all look bad. And remember remember not to hesitate when you're doing the job. Remember that hesitation kills. Remember those deadly errors of others. Don't miss the danger signs, man. You know, stay in the fight and survive. And remember that experience comes from all of our mistakes.
Remember to live a purpose-driven life. Live every day like it's your last day here on earth. And I don't care if you're an ex-gangster, or if you're an ex-cop or former cop, or if you're a former correctional officer, you know what, retired or on duty, always remember that we're still sheepdogs. We could still save lives. You don't need a badge. You don't need a uniform. You don't need a title to continue saving lives. Every day, make a difference in somebody's life. With that said, we'll see you next week. We got Devin Hawks coming. Have a great weekend, and God bless you.